My brothers and sisters, happy Father's Day to you. And yes, I included the sisters in that wish. I'll tell you a bit more as to why. It is no doubt a special day today. And look, special days affords us an opportunity to reflect on the successes, but also, and more importantly, the challenges. Why are we discussing this tonight? You know the drill. It's topical. Good evening to you, South Africa, and those watching around the world. My name is Blaine Herman, and this is It's Topical. Control, let's show our central voice, our digital audiences here. Welcome, as always. We value your input. Digital audience, just a reminder that if you want to ask a question, add a comment, please raise your virtual hand, and I'll try my very best to bring you into the conversation. It is important to have them here. Happy Father's Day to all those who have dedicated their lives to the well-being of their children, whether it's your biological child or not. Those who remain steadfast and resilient in the moments of despair. To those who lead by example, not advice. To those who won't let perfection be the enemy of progress, who keep on trying to be there for their children despite a raft of challenges and obstacles that make it difficult to be a father, to be a dad in this day and age. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You are appreciated. Which leads us to our question of the week. Fatherhood, a state of being a father, a person who has begotten a child. I guess it's an easy to understand title, but complicated in practice. You can be a father in name only without doing much to support your child, be it financially, but most importantly, emotionally. But there are those who try to be that hero that we as children want them to be. They might not always get it right, but for many children, the important thing is that they try. But sometimes there are barriers preventing them from being all that they could or want to be for their child. So we're asking you tonight, what are the obstacles that are facing unmarried fathers who want to be more involved in their children's lives? Let's discuss. Follow me. Look, these obstacles can range from be it psychological. It can also be a legal matter, which I will discuss. I'm going to tell you more about the Children's Act and how it talks to our topic today. It can also be economical as well. This is what we want to discuss today. At It's Topical, SABC. Also, give us a call. You can remain anonymous if you want. 011-714-5958 is the number. All those extensions there as well. Send us your comments via WhatsApp 078-459-8090. Love to hear from you. Listen, let's listen to what some of you had to say in both Northwest and Gauteng provinces in our Word on the Street feature. Take a look.
Why do mothers deny fathers access to their children? I disagree to that. There is no mother who disagrees access to their children to see their fathers, but the fathers are the ones who are denying to see their children. They don't even support their children. They ignore their children. So that's why mothers end up denying access to their children.
Usually,
it's all set when a mother is pregnant and then the father decides to walk away. That's when you start to doubt the father figure to your child.
I'm one of the father they don't give us access to go to our babies. I do love Banavarona. We do love Banavaro.
The reason why they deny them is to protect their own kids, because they protect them from their failed promises.
That anger exciting it just because Papa because of him.
It's those that probably don't pay maintenance, or probably the fathers that mishandle the kids, or probably the fathers that are not responsible enough.
I'm taking care of my kids each and every day and every night.
Sometimes when you're pregnant, they say it's not their baby.
So we carry that anger with us, and then when the father is already okay about it, then we say, no, you cannot have a child because you already told us that the child is not yours.
I think it's wrong that mothers must deny access to the children, because at the end of the day, it's the children that suffer under it. It's the children that go through that trauma. They might grow up thinking their father never loved them.
At the end of the day, as you give birth to that child, the father also gave birth. So let's not deny our fathers. It is Father's Day. Bless him.
At the end of the day, it all boils down to the child and the child's well-being. Context, perspective, always important on this program. So, what does the law say when it comes to the rights and responsibilities of both married fathers and unmarried fathers? Now, in 2020, the Minister of Social Development introduced the Children's Amendment Bill in Parliament to amend the Children's Act 2005 to, among other things, address gaps and challenges in the childcare and protection system. Now, among the most significant amendments relates to parental responsibility. Section 21, it clarifies the parental responsibilities of unmarried fathers, where the biological parents are not married. So the father will automatically be able to fulfill his joint parental responsibilities and rights in respect of the child. I want to illustrate this to you for a better understanding. And this is what we're talking about here. This is part of the Children's Act 38 of 2005. And this is regarding a married father. It reads, follow me here, that the biological father of a child has full parental responsibilities and rights in respect of the child if he is married to the child's mother, or if he was married to the child's mother at the time of the child's conception, the time of the child's birth, or any time between the conception and birth. Have a look at this slide. Now, this talk, so that was pretty straightforward, right? It becomes slightly more complicated when we talk about unmarried fathers. And this is what it says, the Act says. Unmarried fathers also acquire full parental rights and responsibilities if, at the time of the child's birth, he is living with the mother in a permanent life partnership, if he, regardless of whether he has lived or is living with the mother, number one, consents to identify or successfully applies to be identified as the child's father, or pays damages in terms of customary law. It goes on to say, number two, contributes or has attempted in good faith to contribute to the child's upbringing for a reasonable period. And three, contributes or has attempted in good faith to contribute towards expenses in connection with the maintenance of the child for a reasonable period. So that's the legality. What's the practicality? Let's discuss this. I want to take you now to Polokwane office in Limpopo province. It's where we find my colleague, SABC News senior reporter Pimani Beloy, on standby. Now, she brought to light the story of obstacles faced by unmarried fathers in trying to access their children. Pimani, always a pleasure having you on the program. It's important to get context from your reporting advantage. How did this story come about, and what have you found is the biggest reason behind unmarried fathers being barred from accessing their children?
Good evening, Blaine. Indeed, we did run a story during the Child Protection Week where we spoke to several fathers who are unmarried, who have been struggling for years to get access to their children, Blaine. And how the story came about was, as a newsroom, you know, as SABC News, we try to get as many diverse views as we can. And as we're approaching Child Protection Week, we thought, how can we ensure that everybody that's involved in ensuring the safety of children is catered for, their perspective is also presented to the nation as the public broadcaster. And Blaine, that's when I came across a post by a father who detailed a disheartening and heartbreaking story of his struggle to raise his daughter. This is a father, Mr. Castro Musinyani, who says the mother of his child, whom he was not married to, died when their daughter was just a year and a few months old. And Mr. Musinyali's story, from what he says, is that his struggle started even when the mother was alive, where he ended up approaching the family attorney's office, where he felt that as a father, whenever he would buy a gift for his child, whenever he'd want to visit his child, like the child's maternal family would put in barriers where he would have to go in the evenings. He couldn't see her as often as he wanted. And what touched him the most is that, as a vendor, this is a vendor man that we spoke to, he says culturally, what was supposed to happen is that when the pregnancy happened, the family was supposed to go to his family to say, there's a pregnancy, acknowledge it, and then that would he would pay damages, and then he would have access to that. So in his instance, the mother's family never went to his family, which meant there could never be a damages process. Now the child was alive. He is having problems accessing her. He approaches the law. He says he was met with even more challenges trying to access this, where he claims that he would have people with perceptions like, as a father, what do you want to do with a girl child? They would be citing sayings that speak to a female child not being safe in the hands of the father. But then the mother unfortunately died, and then he says it's been even worse. Right now, when we spoke to him, Blaine, he says he had not seen his child for 2 years, even though there is a process that gives him visitation to the child. It gives him access to the child during school holidays and things like that. So, Blaine, what we found to be the biggest reason behind this, it seems there is a perception. I don't know if it's customary law, people feeling there should be processes that are followed, and should they not be followed, then there's a perception that the father is not the rightful person to raise a child. So in this instance, Blaine, we have a father who is the sole living, surviving parent who feels he is the only person who is fit to raise his child. But when he goes to the legal processes, it seems he's not winning, Blaine.
Gender biases and perceived gender norms. I want to talk about this a little later on. But just very briefly, Pimani, what are authorities saying? Where's the solution here?
Blaine, as we did the story, we even spoke to the Department of Social Development in the province. Social development is responsible for the welfare of children. They would even advise, we have social workers in every village, for instance. You can go to any clinic, get a social worker, ensure that you follow all the legal processes. But you can also go to the office of the family attorney and ensure that you have a plan drawn up. But what this father, and I must also add, Blaine, this is quite common, and with Mr. Musinyali, he even formed an organization, a support group for fathers who are also going through the same, which is called We Are Fathers, We Are Parents, where they say it appears even when you go through these channels, the perception is still there, and when you need a report from social workers, they take that perception with them, and that report would not reflect the father in good light. So, but the government says there are so many channels. You can go to social workers, you can go to any court, you get office of the family attorney, but you can also go to the High Court and you can get access to this. But it seems the barrier still remains, Blaine.
Yeah, look, lots of questions, especially the legalities around it. Pimani Beloy, value added as always. Thank you very much indeed for your perspective. Let's discuss with the better minds as well on the program. Let's say hello to our digital audience. They are here to give us their perspective in terms of what we're talking about here. Thank you very much indeed, all of you, for joining us. Gary, let's just start off with you. And I think Pimani touched on some of the issues that fathers are going through. Talk to us about, from your perspective, you are chairperson of Fathers for Justice SA. What are these obstacles that you've come across preventing fathers from becoming more involved in their children's lives? Gary, if you can unmute us, I believe. There we go. All right, I think we're battling with Gary's, so we'll come back to you, Gary. We'll try to figure out what's going on there. Let's bring in Dr. Disa. Thank you very much indeed for your time with regards to the importance of fathers in the lives of their children. Firstly, from your perspective, what are these obstacles, do you think, of fathers trying to access their children but getting pushed back?
Good evening, Blaine, and good evening to your viewers. I mean, the obstacles, I have been part of this conversation for the past 5 years, and the story that was just referred to now about the father. Can you hear me?
I can, loud and clear. Go ahead.
Yes. So the story about the father who struggled through the legal system. I'm very much aware of that man and another one. So I've been part of this conversation for the past 5 years, and I have observed many fathers like him struggle. I think the biggest obstacle that comes about is still the perception that mothers are better off raising the children. But from my perspective as a child, because in this conversation I very much represent the child who then becomes the receiver or who experiences the absence, is that there's a perception that mothers are best in raising their children. In many ways they are, but children need both their parents. As I said, I represent what happens to these children whose fathers are struggling, whether it's with the social workers, whether it's with the legal system. But there are many struggles that these fathers are experiencing. And as a result, some of us then, grow up with the father not being there, which of course has many consequences that we'll probably go into later on.
Let's test that and bring in a father. Thabang Tlhatla. Happy Father's Day, sir. Good to have you on the program. We need your perspective. Talk to us about some of the issues that fathers are going through in terms of being more involved in their children's lives.
Thank you, Blaine, and good evening to the viewers. I'm one of the fathers that have been alienated from my child. It happened that last year I was involved in a car accident. That happened that my wife died, and my best friend, which was a godfather to my 2 kids. Then I survived the accident with one of my son. So ever since I never had an opportunity to spend time with my child. I've been alienated from him. It's been almost over 12 months. I haven't seen him.
So what's preventing you from seeing him?
There's been false allegations towards me that I'm not a good father, I'm not a fit father, I'm not financially stable, and that I'm a very abusive father. I drink like I'm an addict. I drink alcohol, I take substances. There's a lot of false allegations.
Right. And how are you pushing back? Are you taking the legal route? Because this is the issues, right? These obstacles can range from legal, economical, psychological. What sort of recourse are you seeking? What sort of help did you seek?
I did decided to take the legal route. We went to Children's Court, whereby I was granted an interim order that I can stay with my child from Monday until Fridays. But then the maternal grandmother, she defied the court order ever since, because she never followed the order that I was granted, that I can spend my 16 days with my son. So, but then she decided to escalate the matter to High Court, which I think it was another delaying tactic for her to frustrate me. So, but I'm still waiting for the court date to go to High Court.
Right. Let's bring in Dr. Vuyo Yokwe from Man Vitality Conversations. So good to have you on the program. What options are there for fathers like Thabang in terms of getting greater access to their children?
Yeah, so there's quite a lot of a spectrum of allied healthcare services, including psychology, social workers who can assist quite a bit. But then the one problem that we really look into is what most fathers usually go through, and in this case it is usually the trauma, the psychological aspects, and the issue. Thabang raised something here, and then that he was being accused of alcoholism and drugs. But then the issue is that when fathers and men have issues which are a painful emotionality in their lives, then usually they tend towards these things, poor coping mechanisms, and thus And that's one of the issues that we're very terrified about in South Africa.
Mm.
The thing is, men don't speak about their issues. And that's where we come in, as these conversations. So Thabang would really join our conversations as one of the people who might have issues, but it's beautiful that he's bringing it out, that he can then discuss about it. So we also do have social workers that are in our midst, psychologists as well. So that's what we do.
You know, this program is very solution-driven, and no doubt we will get your details. We will post it on our socials as well so that more fathers can access help, because some just give up, turn to substance abuse in order to cope. It's a difficult thing. I can just imagine. I'm a father of a 10-year-old. I can imagine if somebody's preventing me from seeing that precious kid, it'll drive me up the wall, to put it lightly. Gary, can you hear us? Let's see if Gary's there.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
100%, sir. Thank you very much indeed. Listen, I want to talk about your experience, Chairperson Fathers for Justice. What do you stand for? What sort of obstacles are these fathers going through?
Okay, so what we stand for is we campaign for the right of the child to have joint, equal, shared contact care, guardianship, and maintenance with buy-in of both biological parents at all times. The experiences that we have is that we are dealing with a highly aggressive, gynocentric, misandrist, feminist-based justice system that is specifically designed to set out to destroy, sever, and alienate children from fathers. Thabang's case is run-of-the-mill, I'm sad to say. False allegations, if you have a look at false allegations, between 52 and 90% of all domestic violence or protection orders issued in South Africa are based on false, fake, or non-existent evidence. That father can take up to 2 years to have those allegations overturned.
What was that figure again? What was that percentage again, Gary?
Between 52 and 90%.
90%.
So between 52 and 90% of fathers, between 52 and 90% of domestic violence or protection orders are issued under false, fake, or non-existent evidence. So we want to talk about deadbeat dads. If you have a look at that figure, you're looking at between 6 and 7% of fathers are out there are what we can truly describe as deadbeat fathers. We ran a survey last year as Fathers for Justice, where 50% of our fathers told us they were totally alienated from their children. Another 24% told us they were partially alienated from their children. In circa 2010, the Van Ginkel Low et al. Case was at the Equality Court, and the responding affidavit from the family advocate was that in 91% of the cases, the children were automatically awarded to the mother. Minister Lindiwe Zulu in the 2021 Youth Day celebrations told us that it was actually 92% of children are automatically awarded to the father. So you are dealing with a highly aggressive, biased justice system that is ably assisted by the child abusing divorce industry that comprises of lawyers, advocates, psychologists, and social welfare workers. If you want to lose your child, go to a social welfare worker. It's guaranteed you will lose your child.
Big statement, Gary. I'm sure the pushback will be that they are no doubt trying, but you are saying that your experience on the ground is otherwise.
I read hundreds of legal papers from parents across the country monthly. And when I see social welfare worker involved, I know that there's one of 4 possibilities have taken place. That the social welfare worker has screwed up the case to such a degree that the possibility on unraveling the mess and saying, is mommy the problem, is daddy the problem, or both the parents the problem, you can't do it. Or the social welfare worker knows the abuse, they are part of the abuse, or they are the abuser themselves.
We will no doubt reach out. Yeah, I hear you, Gary. We will no doubt reach out to the Social Development Department to get their perspective as well and their take on the allegations. I need to take a break. Christine from UNICEF, I'm going to come back to you with regards to talking about the importance of having both parents. Look, we're not in an ideal world, isn't it? We can't always have both parents. What is the consequences of that? We're going to discuss this and much, much more. It's Topical, and it's Topical SABC 011-714-5958 is the number to dial. Please give us a call. Quick break, more next. Welcome back. Happy Father's Day. If you just joined us, we're talking about fathers' access to their children. How do they become more involved? And what does being involved mean in this day and age? How has fatherhood or fathering changed over the generations? We've got the better minds in the program. We're going to discuss that shortly. Our producer, Slela Mkoko, spoke to Castro Musinyali, who hails from Toyando in Limpopo. He is a father of a 6-year-old, and he took us through his journey of fighting for custody for his daughter. We also spoke to a mother from Vosloorus in Gauteng, who explains why she does not want the father of her child in her daughter's life. Take a look.
Today is Father's Day, a day where we celebrate the role played by fathers in their children's lives. But there are fathers out there who don't see a reason to celebrate this day because they are denied access to have a relationship or be part of their children's lives. We spoke to a father of a 6-year-old who has been fighting the battle to see his daughter since 2017 after her mother died in a horrible accident.
The youngest daughter was born in 2016, and when she was a year and 3 months old, she unfortunately lost her mother in a car accident. I had already experienced problems, even when the mother was alive, to be able to access her and to play my fatherly role to her as my child. I was not married to the mother, so there was a bit of a challenge with the family interfering in my relationship with the child. I went to the family advocate in Toyando to say, this is my situation, there's interference, I'm not able to raise my child properly. When we went to the children's court before a magistrate, the grandfather made it clear that he just doesn't want me near my child. When I buy groceries, sometimes I will have to drop groceries at the neighboring spaza shop because I couldn't reach the house to drop off the groceries. The mother of my child passed on. I was now left with a situation whereby the person who used to help me to access my child is no more. To be kept away from me just by virtue of she's voiceless. It is distraction to the psychology of the child, to the emotion of the child.
Some mothers say they have valid reasons for not wanting their children next to their fathers.
Ukuza azovakashela umntwana yimina oye athi ukuthi yes woza uzobona umntwana yena uyamthanda umntanakhe ngendlela yakhe mara I'm not comfortable ngendlela afike athethe nomntwana ngayo umntwana ude abuye umbona uthi xa buya kutata ku traumatized. I feel like he is an abusive person kumntwana wakhe. That's why ndingathanda ukuthi asondele eduze kumntwana wami.
Let's raise a holistic child, and as parents we need to get away from our own egos and our own feelings out of a situation and say, what would be best for my child?
Denying fathers access to their children's lives is a violation of human rights. And it can have rippling effects emotionally and mentally to both the child and the father. For It's Topical, I am Slela Mkoko, SABC News, Pretoria.
All right, Claire, thank you very much indeed. It puts a face to the issue that we are talking about. Let's discuss further with the better minds in studio. We have a legal expert, Nthapeleng Malale, from Malale Nthapeleng Attorneys. Also on Zoom, clinical psychologist Charity Mkone is with us as well. Wide perspective. Digital audience is still here. If you want to jump in, digital audience, please raise your hand. Throw in some questions to our legal team as well. Tabang, if you have any questions, please come on. We've got the better minds on the program. Let's discuss. Nthapeleng, thank you very much indeed for your time. Let us talk through some of the legal obstacles that a father who wants to be more involved, because there are fathers that don't, but those who want to, What are they facing? What are they coming up against?
Thanks, Blade, and good evening to you, Mr. Blade, and the listeners. And okay, firstly, before I go to that question, I'll want to explain the acquisition of parental rights and responsibility of unmarried fathers. First of all, for the unmarried father to acquire such rights in terms of Section 21 of the Children's Act, he must have been living with the mother at the life partner, permanent life partnership, or if that is not the case, the father must have consented to be the father of the minor child. Right. And secondly, the father must have paid damages. And thirdly, the father must have reasonably attempted to maintain the child financially. And the last one, the father must have attempted reasonably to the upbringing of the minor child. Yeah. So coming back to your question, obviously, I would like first to deal with the issue, the interpretation of the Act. It makes it difficult and it's an obstacle to this unmarried father. Because now when you talk about the permanent life partnership, that definition, in order for you to get your right, that definition has to be interpreted. And in order for you to do that, you'll have to go to court. You know, court, you get different views on that. So again, it's an obstacle. And again, how the Act is worded, it says reasonable. It used the word must have reasonably contributed.
And that's open to interpretation as
well. That's open to interpretation as well. And that now, it means if there's no agreement, then you have to go to court. And the court has to determine the reasonableness of that.
From your experience, when it all boils down, does a father have a better or less chance of obtaining primary custody than a mother?
The father, he stands less chances of obtaining...
The father?
The father. Yeah. He stands less chances of succeeding in obtaining that order.
Why?
The reason being, the court looks at the best interest of the minor child. Different courts have interpreted it, but they have not given out guidelines that they're looking at. But you must understand, for instance, if there is a minor child that is still being breastfed, so obviously those circumstances tend to favor the mother as opposed to the father. And again, another issue is that you've got, let's say, a 9-year-old child. And when you've got a 9-year-old child, he's staying with the mother in most instances. So parent alienation. So the mother tends to now influence the child by bad-mouthing the father. And obviously, when they conduct the investigations, obviously the child will give a better report than the father. So that, again, is another problem.
Right. Still lots of questions. Stand by, sir. I want to bring in Charity Mkone, clinical psychologist. From what you heard, Nthapeleng just explaining, Charity, what does this do to the child? While all this is happening, what does this do to the child?
I mean, it is quite a tragedy for children to grow up without their fathers, or children to grow up without any one of the parents. And I think that in all of this, what needs to be foregrounded, like your previous guests have spoken, is the rights and the well-being of the child. And I think we cannot underestimate the psychological value that having a father plays in the child's life. And I think that most often, what happens with a lot of the mothers who deny access, or even families of the mothers who deny access to the father, is that the child and the rights of the child, particularly the psychological needs of the child, are lost in that process. And the reason for that is that some mothers may have had very tumultuous and really unfavorable relationships with the fathers, and what they see is a partner who had a failed relationship with them, as opposed to someone who the child needs as a father. And I think that for the psychological sake, as well as emotional development of the child, what needs to be borne in mind is that the partner who you couldn't continue the relationship with for whatever reason is quite different from the man who's a father. And that distinction needs to be clearly made, particularly for women and mothers who intentionally withhold their child away from a father who actually wants to be present.
And, this can have, as we were talking about, psychological consequences, repercussions on the father who's desperately trying to be a part of their child's life. Do we, or do our fathers of this day and age have realistic role models, do you think? Or are we still using, and this might be showing my age now, the Cliff Huxtable standard from the Cosby? I'm talking about the character, not the man, by the way. Where he's inexhaustibly involved in their children's lives. Is that the standard? Can we define what being involved means?
I think that's where the crux of the matter is, actually, because the role that men have been known to play in society is as providers and financial providers, that is, and protectors. So I do think that the psychological toll that this takes on men who cannot financially provide perhaps as much as what the mother can provide is that they themselves feel stripped of just a dignity of being able to have voice and a sense of having the power, because what has been known in that men being providers is that whoever has the money is the one who has the power.
Right.
But research has shown over and over again that what is important is the quality of the involvement, not just for the father to be the ATM, but what helps children psychologically and emotionally is the father actually being there on an emotional level. So some fathers are present, but it's more what a presence that's seen or a presence that's valued is a financial presence. But its psychological literature has proven over and over again that what's most important is the quality and the emotional support that fathers can offer. And I do think that
Go on, complete your thought.
what often happens is that the fathers who are not high-flying, very professional people actually perhaps have more time, and the time is valuable for the child to be able to have a deep connection and know that they have a parent who loves them. Whether or not the parents are together, it goes a long way in the child knowing that someone is actually invested in being in their lives no matter what.
And trying, always trying. Because us as children, we forget, as I say, it's a marathon, not a race. And a lot of fathers are unsure about how to have this deeper relationship with their children. Some get dejected because the standard is different. We sometimes, look to television to see how we should perform as a father. Those problems are sorted out in half an hour. We have lifelong problems, isn't it? Let's go to our call. We asked you to give us a call, 011-714-5958. You did. Ribatle is on the line. Very good evening to you. What's on your mind?
Yes, sir. We have a very huge problem here in South Africa whereby the mothers of our kids are using kids as a weapon to hurt their fathers emotionally. And they don't realize that they are hurting the very same kids physically and emotionally, denying them a relationship with their fathers. It's like they own the kids. They decide if the kid gets hurt, it's no one's problem because they carried the kids for 9 months. That's what they say. I carried this child for 9 months. It was painful to bring this child in.
Ribatle, are you going through a similar situation?
She has a right to hurt the child and no one has to say anything. Even the law is on the side of the ladies. That's what helps most. As a father, you can never get help anywhere.
Ribatle showing his frustration. Look, I must say that it's all about getting solutions. It's not a platform in terms of bashing mothers. We understand, we know what mothers go through, on a daily basis in raising their children. But it's more solutions-driven. We need to understand the problem to find the solution. Let's go to the lines again. Anonymous is on the line. Anonymous, what's on your mind?
Thank you very much. I would like to thank SABC for organizing this powerful. It is very difficult for fathers to have an access to their children when their fathers are trying to be involved in everything, school, taking children out, buying clothes for children. But after doing all those things, the mother can badmouth the father in his absentia. Then the court will say, you have an access to see the children, but when you organize with the mother to see the children, the mother will just change and say, no, talk to the children. When you are trying to talk with the children, they have been captured. When you say, I can see you tomorrow on holiday, they will say, no, you cannot see me. I don't want to see you. But when they want clothes, when they want money for transport, they will call and say, when they want food, they will call you. But when you say, can I see you? They'll say, no, you cannot see us.
Yeah.
We're going out with the mother. You can see that when you go to court, the judge there will say, no, pay everything. Pay, you are a father. Do everything that they want. But when you want access, there's no access. And I don't know what these courts doing for us.
All right,
Thank
Anonymous, thank you very much indeed. So you can hear frustration. Let's go back to the lines. Mohammed is calling us. Mohammed, good to have you on the program. Talk to us about obstacles you picked up in terms of getting greater access to a child.
Hi, I've actually had a huge problem with the entire family law system. I have been to over 67 High Court applications only for contact for my children. The mom has been in contempt numerous occasions. Section 35 is not upheld. There was actually an interdict that the mom cannot remove the kids from KZN and the school that he was in, and the judge didn't even uphold that interdict, thereby questioning whether orders really should be upheld in South Africa. And it is actually gender bias. The alienated and moved from Durban to Johannesburg. Now she's in Dubai. In Johannesburg, I've been up and down with no contact. They're actually hiding my children. The grandparents have my children. I've been to SABC all over. They are saying that if I want my kids, I must sign a document that says that the kids need to go to Dubai. Then only I can see my children. I don't know where my kids are at the moment. Right. You know, generally, I'm actually, it's like I'm on a cliff, extending my hands, and my kids are actually falling.
Mohammed, did you get asked permission if your child can leave the country?
No. The matter actually went to High Court. The High Court refused that the kids leave the country. The mom is in Dubai at the moment, but right now the kids are in the possession of the grandparents. And from December till now, I've been trying to locate them. I've been to SABC, I've been to prosecutors. No one wants to assist. They say the matter is going from Johannesburg to Durban, Durban to Johannesburg. I've actually been to the Johannesburg locations. I actually spent. I went I got contact. Well, I actually went to visit them in the Johannesburg location, and I sat there over the entire evening waiting for my kids. Then the grandparents were actually playing around saying that the kids are not there. The kids have left to another location in Pretoria. I sat there the entire evening. I said, no, I just want to kiss my kids goodnight. Then they eventually actually said to me that they don't want to have physical contact with my kids. They don't want me to have physical contact with my children.
Mohammed, I can hear the pain in your voice. Let's hope we can get you some answers. We've got a legal expert here in Nthapeleng. Appreciate your call, 011-714-5958. Keep the calls coming through. Nthapeleng, quick question with regards to what Mohammed raised and the general issue.
Yes.
Can an unwed mother, say for instance a divorce happened, can she leave a country or leave a province without getting permission from the biological father? What does the law say?
In respect of leaving the country, obviously you'll require the consent of the father. But leaving the province, that is not the case. But in this case of Mr. Mohammed, consent is required. Unless there was an application by the unwed mother to have his parental rights and responsibility terminated or suspended or varied. So in that case, the consent would have been required. But in this case, because there was no such an application, so consent is required.
Right. Interesting. Let's bring back our digital audience here. Christine from UNICEF, I want to get your take with regards to the importance of having both parents. And as I keep on saying, this is not the ideal world. We don't always have that case. In case of a divorce, and here we're talking about what it all boils down to, the child. What a child might be feeling on day or year one of a divorce might not necessarily be felt on day 5. How can the parents of who went through this divorce still remain a powerful and positive force within that child's circle? If you can unmute Christine. There you go.
Good evening. Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Yes, so thank you for the opportunity to be part of this very important conversation about the importance of having fathers involved in the lives of their children, and this is irrespective of the marital status or resident status of the father. It is very important, be it day one after a divorce or day 2, 3, 4, 5 after a separation. I don't think it really matters in the best interest, in the best emotional and socio-emotional development of a child. It's important to have both parents in a positive relationship at any point in time. If there is a separation, the parents really should be mindful of the best interest of the development of that child and see to it that the father continues to be involved.
Yeah. Let's talk about the importance of a father in a child's life. We have Masingita with us as part of our digital audience. If you can unmute Masingita. You tell, I came across your clip earlier on, and we said we must have you on the program. It tells a beautiful story about how your father's affirmation helped you in the various challenges in your life. Tell us your story, Masingita.
When I acquired a coordination disability through negligence, the hospital when I was born, which caused a disability called cerebral palsy. And this obviously did affect my parents, both my mom and dad, and being the firstborn child was a challenge. From the day I was born, both my parents were always there for me. So when I was around 8 years old, my dad asked me to make him a cup of tea, which is kind of impossible with
Masingita, we are battling to hear you. I think there's an issue with your line. I think we're going to have to redial you. It's such an important story to tell. Basically, Masingita has a disability, and she, went to make her father a cup of tea, and the affirmation that she got from there, I think she was around 8 years old, and it's changed her life. Just getting that affirmation from her father and showing her direction. But we'll get her take in a short while. Let me talk to you about Darren Mocha, a father from Pretoria who challenges, with seeing and having a relationship with his 6-year-old son. It's become apparent. Why? Let's listen to his story.
I had a child with my baby mama of about 10 years. We have a 6-year-old boy. It's been hard for me, though, I can just say so, because I was denied an access to see my child, of which was very painful. It's which any other father, is not what any other father wants to see of such. In my culture, actually, before I go further, in my culture, when you have a child, like any other African cultures, when you have a child, you actually have to actually pay what you call a damage. Yeah, a damage. So I couldn't get any financial muscle from any other one, so I was denied an access to my beautiful 6-year-old boy. Oh my God. So this is what happened. I stepped into an organization called Not In My Name International, of which is on social media. They actually helped me to get an access to my 6-year-old by granting me a help, of which was financial muscle, obviously. So guys, I'm encouraging each and every one of you that, guys, there is a hope out there. Don't die inside, don't be denied your own blood.
All right, we also asked you to send us your thoughts via WhatsApp. This is what you had to say.
One of the causes or one of the challenges that is faced by unmarried men is the issue of joblessness, because without jobs, people are not financially savvy. And unfortunately, being involved in children's lives is a financial commitment as well. And then the second issue as well is men need to understand that there is a level of commitment that should precede making children. So if there is no intention to be a father, if there's no intention to commit into a relationship, perhaps let's not make babies.
The government must recognize that all the kids, they belong to men, and the men, they must take their responsibility as fathers of the kids. They must take full responsibility of taking care of the kids, and the government must also make sure that people, they are all as fathers responsible for their kids.
This one is a special message to all the fathers out there who have decided for some reasons to add extra responsibilities of taking care of kids that do not belong to you. I say you are special indeed, and you deserve the best.
All right, we appreciate your thoughts. Please keep on sending them in. If you don't get it on the program tonight, we will definitely post it on our socials. We have Nthapeleng Malale, a legal expert, on the program. We also have Charity Mkone as a clinical psychologist. Let's get their take. Digital audience is still with us. And Nthapeleng, with regards to the birth registration, I want to talk a bit about that. On the birth registration, can a mother deny permission for the biological father to be put on that registration?
Yes, the mother can. Obviously, there'll be some reasons. I mean, if the mother doesn't believe that you're the father of the child, that is disputed, so she has a right to do so. But that does not close the door for the fathers. You can approach the court for the court to, obviously, you'll have to prove paternity. And then, obviously, when you go to court, you're going to prove paternity, and then after proving paternity, then the court will then order that your name be put on the birth registration.
How costly is this fight? I'll put it basically in that terms. And, you know, are there any recourse for people who can't afford to fight?
The costs, it will range from a minimum of 60,000.
60?
Yeah, at the High Court. If we were to go to the High Court, because you still need to appoint advocate if the attendant doesn't have a right of appearance. But obviously there as well, a daily fee, obviously it's very expensive. So it's very expensive. So with that, you've got also other options if you've got this kind of matters. But if you were to go to the magistrate courts, the magistrate courts, there are delays in the magistrate court in instituting these type of applications. So at the High Court, you can, on urgent basis, provided that you've got reasons, the court will now entertain you on urgent basis. But at the magistrate court, you submit your application, and obviously you subpoena the person, come appear, the person come and then postpone the matter for it to consider going to legal aid or rather obtaining a private legal attorney. That is time consuming. And again, as I have indicated, it's an expensive process. And then fathers tend to say, no, it's okay, man. You know what? I've tried my best. I cannot afford this. You know what? The child will change the surname when he's old.
Right. It's a difficult situation. Let's bring in Charity very briefly. We're running out of time. Charity, what is the advice for young fathers, especially growing up, who had bad experiences with their fathers? Is it a case of picking the good and then trying to be better? Is that what it boils down to? Charity, if you can unmute you.
Certainly. I think as human beings, we are quite resilient. So people can make it out of the most tragic of adversities that they face in life. But I think what is important to note is that having fathers present and what young fathers can do, and I think a message also to the mothers who are withholding access for fathers who actually want to be involved, is that it teaches children, involved fathers teaches children a sense of responsibility and knowing that someone took responsibility and a sense of predictability in life. Right. So I do think that just the mere act of trying and really going as far as you can go as a father who's been denied access will mean something in the child's life.
Yeah. Charity Nthapeleng, digital audience, 1 hour is never enough. But what we're trying to do is start the conversation and get people thinking about possible solutions. We appreciate your time as always. Here's my take. In an ideal world, children should have the love and support of both parents, isn't it? But we don't live in an ideal world. No doubt single mothers who play this dual role, they need to be celebrated. I myself was raised by a single mother. I know firsthand how challenging it is. There are also those fathers out there who are trying. But I, as a child, need to know that you are trying. I need to be reminded all the time. Look, fatherhood is not a race, it's a marathon. I know some of you are up against it. Some of you don't feel valued. I know you feel that every time you take 2 steps forward, you're getting smacked back to square one. For me, it's all about finding the resolve to keep on fighting, no matter what you're up against. After all, what you are fighting for is precious life, and it's life you helped create. The news continues. Stand by for the Globe. Until next week, take care. Bye-bye.